A 4-day work week for the Philadelphia 76ers. 4 games beginning tonight with the Portland Trailblazers in town and the front end of a back-to-back before they head to Minnesota tomorrow night to take on Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Can Quentin Grimes keep that hot hand tonight against the Blazers? Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Pregame Show, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Alongside Rich Hoffman, I'm Devon Givens. Bree with us. All of you in the chat, hope you had a great Sunday after a pretty big win for the Sixers following their 7-point victory, 126-119 over the Golden State Warriors. Of course, it's one-sided being don't win that game, the other side being, hey, it's okay to mix in a win here or there with the 24 games remaining on the season. But the one thing, again, that we will start off with before we get to our starters a little bit later, our pregame picks segment, and a few other things as we go along. You see the rundown there on the side of the screen next to Rich and I, which is starting off with Quentin Grimes, man. I felt like even though we gave him the player of the game, we started off the show once again discussing everything with him after that 44-point performance, making fun of him for missing free throws where he probably could have gotten 50 points in that game. It was still a career high, and it was a hell of a performance. And with Oubre out, we'll talk about the impacts of that as we go along here tonight.
There's a last-second scratch here, too.
Another last-second scratch that we'll get to there. It's not Quentin Grimes, so We'll start off with him. And just simply, Rich, just going back like I know you do and looking at some things after the game, following up once again just on how he performed, and do you see things there, especially with some guys missing some time tonight, where that can translate into tonight, and how important is it for him to be doing that and playing the way that he is?
I think it's pretty important for him because he's playing for some money in the offseason. I wonder if he's almost playing too well, where he's going to price himself out
of at least this situation
of the Sixers range, or maybe they have to move some other pieces around. That's getting too far ahead of ourselves at this point. But I think Quentin Grimes has shown, unlike a lot of role players, he has the ability to scale himself up and really go off in some of these games, Devon. Like, not a lot of role players have the ability to score 35, 40 points. And if you look at Grimes' numbers since joining the Sixers, it's only been 9 games, and I understand there's been a couple of those explosions, but his numbers are up across the board. He has played well. He shot the ball from 3 very well. Now, I know a lot of that is the other night, but you got 41% shooting. You have 63% on twos, and he's taken more of them as well. He has played really well. He is doing exactly what a guy playing for a contract in the offseason should do. And yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of stuff to his game, man. I think like he doesn't have the fluidity of a Tyrese Maxey when he is crossing over, and he's like a little stiffer than that, but he's still pretty quick. He's a pretty good jumper. He can get that shot off in a lot of different ways, right? He can get on balance quickly, rise up, and shoot over people. So as a scorer, I've been very impressed by him. And I think, considering the guy who just was a late scratch tonight, considering the Sixers are also going to be pretty shorthanded, he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot tonight against Portland. And probably, let's be honest, down the stretch of this season, this last third, he's going to have the ball. And I would imagine he's perfectly fine with that. Have a chance to put up some big numbers, have a chance to put up some big numbers for some teams who might be bidding on him in the offseason as well. But definitely a good start to his Sixers career for sure.
Yeah, and look, man, just a couple of things, just talking about the driving and finishing at the rim that he has been doing as of late, where you've seen a lot. You talk about the numbers being up 60% on those twos. Finishing at the rim, man, he's taking contact, chest to chest, shoulder to chest, going up with both hands, finishing with the left high off the glass.
Yep.
He's showing some really, really, really good versatility overall on a lot of these shots that he's taken there close to the basket. And the outside shot, Yam just brought up one that was really, really, really funny that I hadn't even thought about when he brought up Willie Green as a comp for Quentin Grimes. And
I feel like Willie had some games at the end of years that they weren't playing well, where he would put up some big scoring numbers.
Right. Remember, he got the big contract too, even after he tore his ACL, I think it was, in the offseason. But Willie Green was a really good scorer. The body build is similar. It seems like Grimes is maybe a tad bit taller when you stand next to him versus Willie Green, who I was around a little bit, knowing him since he was a coach too. Seeing him this summer was good to catch up with him. But That's not a bad comparison because Willie could just score, man. He could really score. He has some sneaky athleticism when he got to the basket also. So it's a really good comp. But with that,
I hope Grimes fit in on a better team, better than Willie, just because he's a better shooter than Willie is. Willie, you had to give him the ball a little bit more. And once the Sixers got a little bit better, they got Drew Holiday.
He was a one-on-one creator.
They had Iguodala, which again, that can be useful in a certain context. But I think for Grimes, you would want him to be able to play off Tyrese Maxey.
Ooh, Lil Wilson says faster Allen Houston.
Allen Houston might be faster. A little taller.
He is tall. He's like 6'6", 6'7", 6'6". He's probably easy 6'6". Grimes is 6'4", 6'5". But good comps. I mean, look, I just like the comps overall because that means you guys want him to stay here a little bit longer. And honestly, we do too.
Norm Powell
is an interesting one that we talked about if his contract wasn't so bloated when they gave it to him before, that maybe it was a name that the Sixers would have been interested in.
He's been a funny one. I wonder if Grimes will go he'll have the same life as Norm Powell, because Norm Powell, it feels like he was overpaid. Now it feels like he's underpaid, right? You know, he's kind of bounced around with different teams in different situations. He probably won't be. I think moving to his contract in the offseason, Devon, I know I've talked about this a lot. I do think the middle class, with how restrictive these aprons are not going to get as much money. And really, there's one team out there that's the boogeyman, I think, this offseason, and that is the Brooklyn Nets, right? They have a lot of cap space to play with, and I could see them bidding on Quentin Grimes. They're going to have a lot of different options to throw a bunch of money at. Mm-hmm. I just hope the Sixers can get, I think coming in to the Quentin Grimes experience, we thought, okay, Dallas was not able to sign him. I think they offered him in the range of $8 to $10 million per year.
Apparently, it was the same contract basically as Caleb Martin.
Okay,
yeah,
and I think they gave one to Najee Marshall that was right around the same too.
Mm-hmm. But he also came in as an unrestricted free agent, not Najee Marshall, where Grimes was then traded from Detroit to Dallas.
Yeah. So he's been a guy who's bounced around on a bunch of different teams. It's been kind of interesting because it feels like outside of Detroit, I think the Detroit experience wasn't that great for him, but the other two places, Dallas and New York, the fans generally liked him, right? Yeah. They generally liked him, and he's just been a guy who has bounced around to different teams. I can see why they generally like him. Obviously, the Sixers aren't playing the highest stakes basketball here. It's not like, he's like a playoff performer for them yet through no fault of his own. He's just coming into a situation where the team is having a down year. But I like him. I mean, I think I've had a lot of fun watching him. That was a blast to watch him score the ball the other night, man.
Yeah, it really was. And when you talked about 41% right now in the 9 games that he's played with the Sixers, it's pretty much right there on average of when he was traded here. And we talked about that as a positive with him coming in, playing around Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Paul George, the shooting ability. Later on, when you try to project him out with those guys on the floor, along with Jared McCain as well, that's a number that really stood out to all of us. And that is just panning out. And now, again, the way that he played the other night, that helps out a little bit. But he didn't make a lot of threes overall. He had a lot of twos, man. And he finished, he had 14 makes inside the three-point line. That's really efficient.
And that's the way he started. He wasn't making his threes in his first few games for the Sixers. But when we did the post-game pods afterwards, I was like, they're not going in, but we know he's a good shooter. The form looks good. Doesn't look like he has the Sixers curse where the form is broken and, the Caleb Martin, my shoulder is acting up, which just happens to everybody. It's not Caleb's fault. But he doesn't have that. And so the threes have started to go in over the past few games, but he's also getting to the basket, like you said. And I'm looking at what he is shooting at the rim for the Sixers. He's shooting 71% at the rim for the Sixers. That is excellent so far. Again, small sample. You might expect that to come down, but he's having a really good year at the rim, man. He was shooting 68% at the rim at Dallas, which for a guard is also a very good number. And I think you see why. He's pretty strong. He's pretty bouncy, right? And he can finish sometimes over length and over physicality, which is good to see. Now, that has not been the case in past years, so maybe he's just had a breakthrough in the middle of his career, which happens sometimes. That happens for good, talented players. But yeah, I think Quentin Grimes can be pretty happy with the trajectory of his game right now. It seems like he's going in a positive direction.
Yeah, it really is, and we like him. Need to see a lot more from him, and he's gonna really get an opportunity here, as we talked about down the stretch, because it's not necessarily as high as stakes that we thought it was going to be when he got here. As they try to make a push, now with Joel Embiid out, some other things happening with this team's overall. he's going to get a really, really good look. Now, the question is, in the end, as you talked about, we're not going to get too much into it, but is he going to price himself out? Is he going to like the situation where he wants to stay? When I was talking to him the other night at the gala, he said, look, he's been here before, so he knows what the city is about, but being here a short time, hasn't had a lot to do because of the trade, didn't have his own things. All-Star break, has to go back and get some clothes, come back, all that stuff. But he's always liked the city. He says it's a slower pace New York, which he likes. And he loved it. Look at that. Look at Bree. Look at Bree throwing.
Shot.
Look at that. Look at an action shot. Bree throws it up there on the screen. My man George Ewell right there as well. A little security work. He's with Quentin Grimes, and we were just busting it up. Just talking about a few things. So Bree just doing her thing. So it's good to catch up.
You know what that looks like, man?
Yeah.
That looks like, and I love Baldy. That looks like Baldy takes pictures of him talking to all the players on the field
right.
before the games. And he has
that was courtesy, by the way. That was courtesy of Derek Bodner, that photo.
Okay.
Yeah. So he did that. But no, it was good to catch up with him. And he was like, look, and I'll tell you exactly what he said too. He said, I was like, listen, man, I know it's tough and all. You had that 30-point game and all that stuff. But he was like, nah, man, we just gotta find a way to get ourselves together and get it going. And I'm starting to really feel comfortable. Yes, he had to exit that game early against the Chicago Bulls because of the injury. But he was like, I'm fine. He's like, I feel good. I'm starting to get a real good understanding. He said, I know Tyrese. I know how Reese plays. He knew a couple of the other guys from their time as well, just being on the AAU circuit, playing Team USA when they were younger, and then through college and all. He knew how to play with some of those guys already. So he was like, I'm starting to feel comfortable. And you could see it right there. He went right at it when he had the opportunity in that game. Maxey, again, just one small thing can be, Rich, me and you were playing, and I'm not feeling all that great. And I'm like, Rich, I don't really have it today. You're gonna have to take this one over, right? You've been there, I've been there, even in pickup where you have guys.
That's me half the times I play.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I don't have it today. Or you look at your teammates and you're like, yo, Rich, they don't have it today. Man, you need to pick it up, right? Tyrese Maxey with the bum finger. All it takes is one thing to say, hey, man, I know what you can do. Go out there and do it. The coaches are empowering you already, but it definitely means something when you know your teammates have that faith in you and they empower you to go out there and do it. Just one little small thing that gives you that turn the dial up level of confidence, and you just go after it.
Tyrese got out of the way and gave him the ball at the end of the game. That big possession where Draymond fouls him on the three. That was ISO Quentin Grimes against Draymond. And, you didn't think that was how the season was going to turn out, but in this game, it did work out for the Sixers, or it didn't work out if you want them to lose, which I totally understand as well.
And by the way, Kyle Wright says making Devon look small. Kyle, that's not difficult to do. I'm not very tall. So it's not. I
was going to talk to you
and
about
I've been around long enough where I'm used to it. It's okay.
I was going to talk to you about that for a second because, again, if I was in that picture instead, Quentin Grimes, who when you watch him on an NBA court, when you watch him with that camera angle removed from the court and on top, does not look like a very big guy. When you're walking around next to him, he's huge, man.
Tall dude, man.
What is he? Said he's 6'5"?
6'5". Yeah, I would say 6'5".
The one that I always think of is JJ Redick, who looked like, let's be real, he looked like a miniature person kind of running around.
But he's 6'4".
He towers over me. Are you kidding
tall.
me? Yeah, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Quentin Grimes is that the NBA players, man, they are just built different, man.
Some tall dudes,
there's some tall guys.
Tall dudes, man. I mean, look, you've seen Mikhail's 6'7", easy. When I stand next to Kale, I can send Bree some pictures of Kale and when I'm standing with Kale. And yes, it's obvious. Jack is 6'4", his dad. Kale's younger brother, 6'7". He almost looks like he's taller than Kale now, but it's like he's 6'8". But yeah, so I'm used to it, my man. Appreciate it, Kyle. No worries. But as we say that, Kelly Oubre out and not in the starting lineup. Quentin Grimes, of course, is going to have to pick it up a little bit more. You mentioned that there's someone else who is also going to be out tonight that I did not point it out. And you mentioned, well, if that person's going to be out, he's probably going to handle the ball a little bit more. Already on the injury report today was Tyrese Maxey. No, pardon me, Paul George. He was questionable all day, along with Kelly Oubre. Tyrese Maxey, before the game, we saw where Austin Krell had pointed out a thing that Nick Nurse was saying about how he was taking the tape off the finger. With him taking the tape off the finger, Nurse asked him about it, and he's like,
does it feel better?
Man, does it feel better? And he's like,
no.
No. So I'm curious because when you said a lot of ball handling duties, that could mean Maxey. It could mean George because he was also on the injury report. Who's in, who's out, and Quentin Grimes is going to be getting a lot of shots, I'd imagine, tonight.
You would think so. No Paul George.
No Paul George?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's who it is?
That's what I meant.
Oh, okay.
No Paul
George.
Yeah.
All right.
So no Paul George. As you said, he was questionable all day. They scratched him, so he is not in the starting lineup.
Maxey can't even shoot.
He is not playing tonight. So when you add in PG, just all right, sit him on the bench.
Goodness
and then you have
gracious.
Maxey saying, all right, I'm going to try and play without the bandage tonight. Not because it makes my finger feel better, but because I can't shoot with the bandage on. It seems like that is what he told Nick Nurse. So he's like, no, this isn't good, but I'm going to try something different and see if this works because I'm shooting 0 for a million on 3 a couple of nights.
This.
I think Quentin Grimes is going to get a lot of shots and a lot of responsibility against a pretty fun Portland Trailblazers team. I think they have been one of the more fun stories over the second part of the season. I wonder if their fans thought at the beginning of the year, okay, this is definitely a rebuilding year. You know, coming into the year, it was like, okay, they're going to tank. They're going to play the young guys. Going to make some trades in the middle of the season. January, February, they have won a lot of basketball games.
They have.
And they have a lot of interesting, fun young guys. They've kind of taken themselves out of that top, that Cooper Flag territory and even burst ahead of the Sixers in the standings as well. But they have a lot of guys. And even with Jeremy Grant out tonight.
No Ayton.
And no Ayton, no Robert Williams tonight either. They have a lot of guys, a lot of young, interesting guys who are playing pretty well. A lot of guys who can score. They almost beat the Cavs yesterday. I know Donovan Mitchell did not play. Pretty wild game, went into overtime. Fun Sunday.
Shout out DeAndre Hunter.
Yeah, playing well. The Cavs are, man, what a team. Great win for them on Friday against Boston as well. I can tell you right
19,
now.
Down 19? No. Yeah, down 19, I think it was.
They were getting their butts kicked early in the game.
25-3.
I can tell you right now, everybody. The second the Sixers are out of the playoffs,
21,
I am putting on that Cavs jersey as fast as possible. I know you got your Knicks. I'm putting my Cavs jersey on right away. I really like that team. Okay, I'm going off topic.
No, this is Portland, fun. Good players.
Portland, they have a bunch of young guys. As we've talked about, Kamara, you got to imagine Maxey's going to see him to start, right?
A lot.
Maxey with the bum hand, and that guy
had 4 steals against the Cavs yesterday.
He is a young, exciting defensive player. It's funny that I believe Thibault has been hurt for most of
He's also out.
Most of this season. He is, I would say, Matisse gambled a lot, right? And I think we saw the downsides of that style where when he was getting in the passing lanes and he was making steals, it was great. But sometimes he would take himself out of the play. He'd foul a lot. Kamara feels like a guy who's even a little more conventional, but still gets all those stocks, all of those steals and blocks. So that's a lot of size against Tyrese Maxey tonight. You got the 3 guards, right? You got Shaedon Sharpe, Anfernee Simons is still there, and then Scoot Henderson's starting to play a little bit better off the bench.
Settling to his role off the bench.
In a reduced role. Now, that's obviously still a little bit disappointing for the number 3 overall pick, 2 overall pick, whatever it was. Yeah. Top pick, but it's good to see after a tough year, he is bouncing back. And then you got Deni Avdija, who's
love him.
Yeah, very good contract that they traded for. Can do it all. 2-way player, push the ball in transition.
Triple-double in that game yesterday.
30 points, too. And then they have, Donovan, who's been settling into his role. I like him as a run-the-rim type of guy. Anyway, they got a bunch of young dudes. So they are on the second half of a back-to-back. Sometimes on the road, that means that they're going to play worse. I do think they have young enough legs where maybe that won't affect them quite the same way. Right. It was an earlier game in Cleveland yesterday, so they had a little bit of time to rest up.
And the only really issue with that one is because it went into overtime, not because they can't play in the second night of a back-to-back. It's more that they spent that extra 5 minutes of basketball playing. But these guys are young. We've seen teams on the second night of a back-to-back against the Sixers, and they're just fine. It doesn't matter. They can keep going, man. But, yeah, they have a lot of nice young players. But to the point of where things are right now with no George, no Oubre out there, we're going to get to the starters here in a second, but that just gives your 2 guys that are going to really have to try to go out there and fire it up. I'd imagine Justin Edwards is going to get the nod at the starting lineup. Maybe ALLCITY will be in there with Drummond.
I might have looked at it. You might be right about that.
Okay. Well, so looking at it, though, that's a lot of opportunity and a lot of attention to Maxey where they're going to try to get the ball out of his hands. A lot of Grimes. See what other guys can do. and see how it goes. So this one has turned out to be a pretty good matchup. Not good, interesting matchup of how Nick Nurse is going to coach this team against Chauncey Billups' squad. Very young, very energetic, looking for a different, I guess, end game here now with the way that they're playing. Can't imagine Chauncey Billups wants to tank. He's trying to keep his job also.
No, they're trying to win.
Yeah, they're playing some really good basketball. So this Sixers thing is going to be interesting to see how they go about it. But the George piece of it, man, just to kind of start there and stay on it. It has to do, of course, a lot of it with the injury to his finger, right? So with that, as I check out the injury report to see exactly what they have on the injury report.
Was it just groin? Did they say
they have it as the groin soreness?
Okay.
All right. Listen, man. He's missing the games this late in the season. It's the finger that's messed up and the groin as well. And I'm not saying it's for tanking purposes. I'm just simply saying because they're not going to win. And if he's going to be bothered, they're going to continue to be bothered. And we talk about seeing these other younger players out there on the floor. Does it make sense to just also – you asked me the question the other day, and I said give it the rest of this week with the 4 games. He's already out. And they play tomorrow night. Now, maybe they felt like they needed him a little bit. He can fly to Minneapolis tomorrow, play against the Minnesota Timberwolves when guys are playing tonight. He'll be a little more fresher tomorrow against Minnesota.
We'll
for
see.
whatever their reason is. Does it make sense to just look at that as a real possibility of shutting him down?
Maxey?
No, George.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think, PG, especially if he's going to keep looking down at his hand. Now that he played pretty well in the second half of that Warriors game. Give him credit down the stretch.
Took him 30 minutes to get there, though.
It was a rough start. And, I said this last week where if that's going to be the case and, he's dealing with, I believe it's called mallet finger. I think that is a much more descriptive term than a pinky injury. I think he actually is dealing with an injury here. I do think it makes sense to shut him down.
Because that was a 6-week thing that they said in order for it to be right. So he's playing through an injury that needs the 6 weeks. And what are we in? Maybe year 2.5?
Now if he's dealing with a groin as well, like he's dealing with a lot of stuff. There is going to be a point in the coming weeks here where it's like, let's see the young guys play. Paul George, we know what you can do. I don't really think it's going to get much better. Like take a seat. Let's see what Justin Edwards can do. Let's see what Grimes can do. Play more of the young guys. You go rest up. And it's, it has less to do with, your level of toughness than just like where the Sixers are, how disastrous this season has been, what they are realistically playing for. Not a lot down the stretch here, where it makes sense to if this is going to bother him and it's going to be a day-to-day thing, just go rest up, be ready for next season, get back on the podcast, do whatever you do. I do think it'll make sense. And also you mentioned Maxey as well. If he comes out tonight, I think your point the other night, if he comes out tonight and just starts throwing up more bricks, like it would make sense, even if you want to say, okay, he's a competitor. He wants to continue to play.
He doesn't have to prove that to us
just
anymore.
Take a couple games off, man. If you're going to shoot this poorly and your finger is killing you, it's all right,
and you want to play, take the week off.
Take the week off. Come back, seriously.
Yes.
Let's get the hand feeling better. It's not a time to be pushing through. So I agree. But I like what you said the other night. Give him a couple more games. Let's see if he can work his way through it. If he wants to continue playing, that is his prerogative, and I understand that it might actually do more harm in the long run to shut him down against his wishes if he wants to keep playing. But if you're going to shoot 0 for 8 from 3 again tonight, I think we know that something's up with that hand because you're not a 0% 3-point man. No. You're actually very good.
And he had a few good looks there when they were making that comeback, and it looked really good. One he didn't really take. He just decided to pass it up and give it to Quentin Grimes on one. He passed up another, drove to the basket. Tried to be a floor general, which is good because it kind of teaches him of having that mindset too when he is healthy next season, and he has to really balance the two out of what he's doing out there on the floor. But that being said, there's really no point for him to be out there if he's just going to be just playing basketball, passing the rock, being, picking up the defensive assignment. That's great too. But if Maxey's out there, you want to see him being Maxey and also having that gravity where he's helping out, where it takes away from what the others are doing. And real quick on the Paul George piece, one of the other reasons we all talked about potentially keeping him on the floor was seeing what he looks like with Embiid and Maxey. Embiid's already gone.
Yeah, there's no
We've already seen 30-some games of him with Maxey. We already know what that looks like too. That's only going to be better if he's healthy. They've played enough games where I think they understand who each other are as players, how they can be that 1-2 punch. We've seen that. That example is out the window now. So that's the other reason why you can probably get ready to shut it down. All right.
Completely agree.
Yeah. All right, Bree, let's do it. Starters tonight. Okay, so I guessed it right. Yeah, you got Drummond in the middle at the 5 with Yabusele and Edwards in the front court with him, and Quentin Grimes, Tyrese Maxey in the back court. That's your now, let me just double check and make sure. I want to say 37th different starting lineup. And as I said it the other day, I made the mistakes at 37, went back and it was 36. Rich correctly corrected me and said, don't worry, they will have more opportunities to get to that 37. Little did we know it was going to be the very next game. Yeah, that is the 37th different starting lineup for the Philadelphia 76ers tonight with Drummond, Yabusele, Edwards, Grimes, and Maxey. So there you have it, man.
Got Mike Tirico on the call tonight.
How about that, Kate? And this, for anybody who's probably saying, oh, the demoting Kate, no. It's because the NBA on NBC is coming back. So they're trying to get these announcers some more reps. Some of them have been doing other things. Like Mike Tirico's been doing a lot of football lately, some Olympics, and so many other things. So just giving them a run for some basketball. And it's local. So he's here. And he's in Philadelphia. Kate's still going to be doing some stuff, I think, some sideline stuff tonight, I think it was.
I think pregame or something. But it's just one game.
Yeah, it's just
one
game.
Be back next game. But yeah, Mike Tirico, and he's doing this in other markets as well, other local NBC markets.
Because he's going to have multiple different teams to call once he gets back as that lead analyst for the broadcast
he's
team.
He's going to be the main play-by-play guy for NBC's coverage national.
There you go. So
he's just trying to get back in the swing of things. Mike Tirico, very talented, versatile announcer, guy who's
big fan
in his broadcasting career. Not recently, because he's been at NBC, who's not had hoops. Big
fan of Mike Tirico. All right, let's get to the Bet365 pregame pick segment, brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. All right, Bree, what do we have lined up here? Plus 260, same game parlay, Rich.
Oh, baby.
Tyrese Maxey. Look, he's taking the tape off his finger. But they kind of gave us a 29.5 for what we've seen from Tyrese Maxey. And I know he had a 30-point performance a couple of games ago, but we've also seen him shoot 0 for 10 from 3. Last game, he was passing shots up. He hasn't been good. He hasn't been all that good as a scorer. So I went with the under on the 29.5 for this one. Any other time, we would take that over and we would probably win, especially during that streak where he went about 19 games of 28 or more points consecutively. Tonight, though, even with George and Oubre out, he's going to have to take a lot of shots that he's probably going to feel uncomfortable with, which will not go in. So I went with the under there. And Deni Avdija, I think it was, Bree, 4.5 assists. Yeah, triple-double. Yeah, 10 assists. I went with the over on that one, Rich. He's going to hit ball handling a lot.
I like these parlays you cook up, man. That looks like that's going to hit. Man.
Thank you. Plus 260, everybody. Go out there, Bet365. Make sure you take advantage of it. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You can get that at plus 260 at Bet365. And if you add one more, Rich, I don't know if you have one off the top of your head, you can get a 3-leg parlay where you could boost it 30% tonight only in the NBA at Bet365. So
maybe a Quentin Grimes over?
Quentin Grimes over, whatever that number is.
Threes.
Go for it. Go for it. Bet365 must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. See, Jess there says she's tailing it. All right, go for it. Make that money, Jess. All right, that'll do it for us here as we get ready to hang out with us three and watch the game back here at the office. You watch it where you are. Let's reconvene afterwards and talk about this basketball game. Can the 76ers win their second consecutive game and pick up win number 22 on the season on March 3rd? We'll see. We'll talk about it all. Enjoy the game, everybody. Rich, Bree, myself will be back afterwards on the PHLY Sixers postgame show presented by Bet365. Enjoy the game.
all city like the mayor.